Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are going to start in just a minute, so hang tight. We're going to let some more guests join, and we'll get started. All right. Hello and welcome to our special release party for the new Bosch CONETTIX B6800 Central Station Software Receiver. My name is Elizabeth Christensen. I lead marketing communications and training initiatives for our team in North America, and I'll be your moderator and host for this event. And I'm so happy you chose to come and join in on our celebration. Before we dive in, a couple housekeeping items. We have a packed house here, yet some friends will probably be watching later. So we are recording this event. There's a chat feature, actually a Q&A feature in this platform where you can easily type in your questions throughout the presentation, and our team will address them at the end. We have slotted a total of 30 minutes for this event. So let's kick things off, and I will introduce our presenters. So first, I'm joined with Tom Meckler, Regional Marketing Manager responsible for intrusion systems at Bosch in North America. With nearly 40 years of industry experience, Tom's background includes marketing, product management, sales, technical support, product training, and installation. By working with customers, end users, and industry professionals, Tom specializes in adapting today's technology to the needs of the alarm industry. In addition to Tom, we have Stefan Kavassis, Senior Product Manager for Communications Products and Services in the intrusion business. With over 34 years of industry experience, his journey has encompassed diverse roles, including installation and service as a dealer, central station manager, technical support, and product management. With a strong background in central station software and accounting, as well as customer implementation and training, he will serve as our subject matter expert for our new product release. So with that, we are ready to begin, and I'm going to hand the mic over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today. We're really excited, as you can tell by the popping champagne and balloon background that we have today. We're really excited to bring to you our new software receiver, the B6800. And first, we'd like to give you a little idea what this thing is and talk through it. So I'll go through the agenda first. First, we'll give you an overview of the product. I always like to talk about communication security because that's so important when we talk about alarm communication, especially. Then Stefan's going to go through how simple the 6800 is to install and how simple it is to use. And then we'll go through how simple it is to order and talk a little bit about training. There'll be some time available for questions at the end, and also you can use the Q&A function within Teams in order to ask questions at any time, and we'll cover all of those at the end. So first, what is the B6800? Well, it's a software-only central station receiver for IP accounts. Software only means that you install it on your PC, on your server. You're no longer buying any hardware from Bosch that you have to put in a rack. You're going to install it on your own computer. It supports from 500 to 10,500 panel accounts, and that's through licensing. It has a simple and modern web browser graphical user interface. It's just so easy to use, and if you're a current Bosch receiver customer, you're really going to like this. It's just so new and simple and easy and modern. It's just really nice. One of my favorite parts of the tool is a dashboard that shows real-time status of all of your accounts, information about the system, information about automation. It's kind of a front of the old receiver on steroids, and boy, you're really going to like it when you see this. Another new thing for those of you who might currently operate a Bosch receiver, multiple simultaneous users can update panel accounts. So that means multiple users can do it at the same time. And you ask me, well, how many can do it at the same time, Tom? We don't know, but we know it's a lot. It's certainly more than the one that can do it now. And it's probably hundreds, folks. It's UL listed for UL 864 and UL 2610. So this is ready to go for UL Fire and UL commercial Berg applications. We thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about who is the B6800 for and what types of use cases there are for it. Well, certainly contract monitoring. If you operate a contract central station and you're monitoring thousands of Bosch IP accounts, then this is a great tool for you because it just makes it easier to manage those accounts. Also, there's a whole lot of customers out there that are full service dealers, meaning you do your own installations and you operate a central station. So you need both of these things in your bag of tools, and the B6800 is good for you as well. Here's an interesting twist, though. Not all dealers have their own monitoring center, but all dealers can actually benefit from the 6800 because it just runs on a computer and you don't need to stand up any extra hardware. You can actually install a 6800 in your shop, even if you don't run a monitoring center, just for service, just to keep an idea of what's going on with all of your Bosch accounts. So if an account has an alarm or a low battery overnight, you get that signal the same time the monitoring center does, so it helps you prepare for your service day. And of course, proprietary applications, campus applications where someone might be monitoring their own accounts, a university, a school district, those types of applications that aren't necessarily a traditional use case for alarm receivers, but might benefit from it as well. So a little more detail on the 6800. It's a brand new software monitoring central station receiver solution. It runs on your hardware. Again, you're not buying hardware from us. It's been tested and it's UL listed with Windows 10, Windows Server 2019, and Windows Server 2022. It operates in Hyper-V. So the 6800, when you install it, actually installs its own virtual machine and it runs in that virtual machine, which is great because then it provides this extremely modern solution that's just so much improved from our current receivers. It also, though, provides backwards compatibility. For example, it retains all the functionality of the 6800 and 6100, communicating with your existing monitoring automation software. We have an import tool, so if you want to move from a 6100 or a 6600 to the 6800, we have a simple import tool, so you don't need to reprogram all of those things. One thing that's important, though, folks, is it is IP communication only. For Bosch, that means it could be wired Ethernet or cellular, because our cellular communication also uses Internet Protocol, but it does not support PSTN lines. So no phone lines, no phone calls are going to come into this receiver. And for those of you who connect our receivers to automation software, we've added TCP/IP as a communication format just to make it easier for you. What are the parts and pieces of the receiver? Well, let's talk about the 6800 as a system. And in that system, you can have up to 2 receivers. And what some folks will do for that is maybe they have some accounts that are encrypted, maybe they have some accounts that are not encrypted. Today, that's 2 hardware receivers in your rack. With the 6800, you can just split those accounts between 2 inputs or 2 ports on the receiver. Some are for encrypted accounts and some are for non-encrypted accounts. Another part of this is the system manager, and the system manager replaces what the 6200 software is today. So that allows you to manage the system, program your receivers, your accounts, program operators. There's one system manager per system. It's available via a browser. The 6800 actually has a web server, so you browse into the 6800 to make all these changes. And the nicest thing about the system manager is it doesn't require you to install software on multiple workstations throughout your monitoring center. The only place you need to install software is on the main server for the 6800 and its failover system. And then with all of your workstations, you simply use your favorite browser to browse to that receiver. The monitoring dashboard, That allows you to view the event traffic, what's going on right now. It gives you visual and audible notifications. And again, that's available via a browser, so you don't need to have software program or installed on a local machine. I always like to talk about communication security when I talk about Bosch communication because it's a really important part of our solution. One thing with Bosch communication, with IP communication, all accounts must be preloaded. You might ask, well, why do we do that? That's kind of a pain in the neck. I have to have my operator load in an account before it'll start receiving. The reason we do that is we want to make sure that the receiver is only receiving messages from known systems. It's only listening for systems that it is expecting to hear from. And that does two things for us. One thing is it helps us to guard against a denial of service attack. So no one can set up a bot and just start pinging your receiver, pretending they're Bosch panels and get it all confused because it'll just ignore the stuff that it's not looking for. The other thing it does for us is it allows a simple mitigation for runaway devices. If you have an alarm panel that's connected over IP and you have a runaway point and it's going in and out of alarm, you can get hundreds of messages per minute. It's crazy. So you'd like to be able to shut that off easily. With the Bosch system, you can go to the receiver and turn off that individual account right from the tool. With other systems, you'd have to call in the IT department to disable that incoming IP address. We use secure UDP communication, and the reason we use that UDP communication is because it helps us to mitigate a denial of service attack. And again, a denial of service attack is when you open up communications to a IP address and you do it multiple times and you do it until that IP address is overrun and can't accept any more communication sessions, and then you go empty the safe because they're not going to catch the alarm. That's impossible with a Bosch system because we use secure UDP communication. All messages are verified, so we're looking for a response from each message. So you just can't do that. We have built-in anti-substitution and anti-replay in our solution, which eliminates surreptitious attacks. The idea here is if you have an alarm system and it's operating, you'd like to make sure that the bad guy couldn't buy another panel, put it right next to the good one, program it the same, swap the IP cable out of one and plug it into the other, and then empty the vault because you think everything's okay. Well, that's anti-substitution and anti-replay. We have a special code that is fed to the control panel from the receiver that must be returned to the receiver so it knows that it is that particular piece of hardware and can't be tampered with. Also, we have a high level of encryption in every panel. Some of our competitors, you have to pay extra for encryption. You have to order it separately. We think data security is really important at Bosch, so we include it in every product that can be connected to an Ethernet jack or connected to the internet. So we have 128-bit to 256-bit AES encryption. We use a cipher block chaining encryption technique, which is a very high level of encryption that manages the passcode so it can't be hacked. And again, all Bosch communicators come with encryption. You get to turn it on or off, but you don't have to pay extra for it because we think data security is very important. So we're not going to charge you extra for it. Stefan's going to take a couple minutes to tell you how simple the B6800 is to install. Stefan, you want to take over?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Great informational introduction. What I want to do is show you how the installation of this works. Those that have ever installed either a 6600 or a 6100, you know the complexity to set up that network module. We'll show you the simplicity of this. As Tom mentioned, this runs right now. The installation is on a Windows machine. It runs in Hyper-V as its own VM. So it's a Windows executable for the install. Very simple, very basic. When it runs, it will check on that machine to see if Hyper-V is enabled or not, and it will turn it on. If it isn't, then it will take us to that installation wizard that'll walk us through it. There's a EULA for it, very simple on that. The installation type, for those that are standalone, you don't need to check the box. So it's either a standalone, or if you're setting up a failover system, the failover we will talk about in a few slides is completely automated. So failover would be having two systems talking to each other. If we are doing an installation for failover, we check the box, we install the first system, and it will back up all of the assets of information that are needed for the second system so that that same data can be imported, because they need to have the same information to be able to get these two to communicate. From that, the rest of the install is basically the same. It's where are we putting this VM file? What are my resources that are required? In our manual, we do talk about what's needed on the host machine for the VM, what's on the screen. Two logical processors, 4 gigs of RAM, and 100 gigs of free space for it is all that's needed, whether it's the minimum number or the maximum number of accounts. Increasing this does not change the performance. It will actually perform better at this small amount. You pick a network adapter. If there's multiples, you just pick one of them. It will use one, whether it's DHCP or static IP configuration, allows you to set those. And then the port configuration, where Tom mentioned that there are up to 2 receivers in the system. What port are each of those? And we'll call them virtual receivers because they're part of the system. They're not independent systems that are installed. There are 2 receivers inside. What are the ports for them for both panels and for automation if we're doing TCP automation, which is preferred? And then time server. So this receiver or this system will get its time from an NTP server. So externally, if it can get on the internet, it will go out, retrieve the time, pull it back. If there's an internal one, it would do the same thing. We give it a name for the server and a domain name of where we're going to connect to it, because that will create a certificate for it. If you're doing failover, our documentation in the installation manual has very detailed of what to put in here. So definitely read that if you're looking at failover, because it'll simplify it. Couple of passwords that you have to enter. So you only have 2. One's creating a root, one's creating a log share that's for an SMB file share for files, for logs out of it. And then that is it. So you'll run the install, it will go through all the steps and then take you back to a finished screen on that. This process takes about 5 minutes. If you know, get the IP address and port numbers of what you need, you can actually do this in 5 minutes. The simple to use part is we'll go through how this looks in the browsers and some of the functions. Tom mentioned 2 receivers available, different use cases that you can do. Licensing options. So this licensing is not like the key with the 6200 where you have 500 or 3200. This is what set of licenses do you need, and they can increment 500, 2500, or the 10,000, whatever is needed, and it goes across the system in there. It does have a real-time dashboard. We're going to show that in a moment and show the details of what's in there. The user interface for adding and deleting that Tom had talked about. It's a replacement for that 6200. The output format to automation, it's 100% identical to what the previous receivers were. 6500 mode, SIA mode, so no changes in how that talks. And then the automated failover, which we'll show in a moment here. So this is the monitor page. And on that monitor page, this will show us real-time status of the accounts that we have. Account status will give us supervised, unsupervised, pending, online, offline. So we can see at a glance all of the accounts that we have. What are the status of those accounts that are in there? Pending being a new one also. You did not have that previously from there. The system will tell us which server or which receiver, if we're doing failover, is active. If it's only one, that's the one we're talking to. And then what's the status of those licenses? That'll show in the tiles. And then automation and receiver status will show here. So the receiver, because it is a virtual machine running elsewhere, if it were to stop communicating, the monitor page will know that, and it will alert you to an issue. Same with automation. If automation goes down, it will alert you of an issue. We can look at all the offline accounts. In the 6200, you had to receive it, look at them, sort them by that. You really didn't get as much information as here, because we show when was it last supposed to check in and how long has it been offline. So you can actually find it in here faster and more easily than it looking even in the automation side from it. Recently completed, Those are just as simple as a traffic display that's showing in there. If automation or anything goes offline, the offline will come on, it will enunciate. If automation's down, we have a manual way of processing alarms, similar to what you did at the front by pressing the ACK button. This one will show up to 50 at a time. So you can have multiple people in there, and mute will allow us to silence that. The system manager side configuration is where we can add and edit accounts. The list of accounts is here that we can filter. Adding account is as simple as putting in a name, an NC number, the pertinent information you need. Note that the duration for offline or the supervision time, you just enter it versus in the previous 6200, you had to click and you probably had a list of several hundred to select from. This one, you just enter it. So it's definitely a time saver. When you do edit, you can change anything you need to change, including NNC numbers, which previously you could not do. Two receivers, you can configure them in any manner that you need to that are inside. They have nothing to do with failover. They're just two independent receivers. Automation profiles can be set up. Operators, so they have logins to the manager side where we're at, and there's a standard and an admin. Standard can only work on accounts, look at help and pull event history. Admin can see everything. It is not LDAP or Active Directory. That's on a roadmap. So if you're wanting to ask that, there's the answer to that question. Licensing, it will show us what we have in the system for licensing, how many accounts are there, how many in use, how many are still remaining available. And then event history does have a big upgrade also. In the previous receivers, it was 20,000 or 2,000 events. This is 30 days, irregardless of the number. So if it's 20,000, if it's 20 million, they will be in the history to be able to pull information back. And then the last part of this is the failover. This is an automatic failover. If you've done failover with hardware receivers, you've had AB switches. This one has two host machines, each running a system. There's a license to get that. Two static addresses for each of them. And then those will be inputted on that system, and there's a virtual address. So the way the system works and the way the failover works is these two talk to each other over the network. System A, System B will communicate with each other, and they will automatically update in real time. Everything that comes into the active one gets sent to the standby, and in case of failure, the standby system will take over all processing. You don't need to do anything, including redirecting traffic. It uses that virtual address for it. So the setup needs 3 addresses for the entire system, and then everything is done through the console, which we have documentation that walks everyone through that. So that's how the system works, how it looks. I'm going to let Tom talk about the ordering process, and then we'll answer any questions.
Thanks, Stefan. And how do you order a B6800? What parts and pieces do you need? Well, first you start with the B6800 SR. That's the receiver itself. That's the software license that also includes the first 500 accounts. And what you'll do is you'll download that software from our website, and then you'll purchase a license to activate the B6800. There's 3 additional licenses that will allow you to add multiple accounts to your system. There's the 500, 2,500, and 10,000 account licenses that are available. And you can mix those in any way that's required to get to the number of accounts you need. For example, today, if you had a 6100 or a 6600 receiver, you either get 500 accounts or you get 3,200 accounts. Well, with the 6800, it's much more flexible. So if you needed 1,000 accounts, for example, you add one 500 account license and to your base 6800-SR. You need to go to 1,500, you get another one. Now you can also add, you can skip a little bit. Well, the way we've priced this is if it makes sense that you would need 3 of a particular license, we just made the pricing work out so you jump up to the next one. So if you need 1,501, you don't buy 3 500 account licenses, buy one 2,500 account license. And if you need 8,000, don't buy 3 of the 2,500 account licenses, buy one of the 10,000 account licenses. It just makes it easier and much more flexible, and you can build as you go, as you grow. So the ordering process, you'll place an order for the product, same as you're ordering any other product. you'll get an email with an entitlement that gives you the instructions on how to download the software and how to install the licenses. And also, it's important to remember that the system comes with a software maintenance agreement, or an SMA. The first year is included with your license purchase. So when you order your first 6800-SR, you don't need to order an SMA. You can order an SMA, that'll give you an additional year, but you get 1 year of service and you get 1 year of upgrades with your initial purchase. And then going forward, you'll buy SMAs for subsequent years. What does the SMA give you? Well, it's required for technical support. You'll get technical support for the first year, of course. It's required for any new major revisions. We already have updates planned where we're going to add features and benefits to the 6800. And if you have an active SMA, you'll get that. Any patches or updates, any work that we do, anything that we add, you'll need the SMA to get. It's also important, though, that the 6800 comes with a perpetual license. So if you don't get an SMA, the thing isn't going to stop working and stop monitoring accounts. It just means that you won't get tech support, you won't get any updates. But the product will be able to continue to work forever once you buy that initial license. From a training standpoint, what we've done is we've created a YouTube channel with several videos on installation and operation of the 6800. We understand that the people that are installing the 6800 are probably your IT manager, probably the most computer savvy person in your organization. They probably don't need one-on-one training from Bosch. They can probably load this and install it. And it's really easy to install. So you got a really smart person doing something easy. You probably don't need us to come out and train them. But we do have some training that's available on the YouTube channel, and there's a module in our training academy. If you are part of the Bosch Training Academy, and if you're not, you should join. You can take a module on the 6800. But of course, if you run into challenges or you just want to hear more from Stefan and I, we're very happy to have an optional webinar session where we can go through what we just did. We can go through the installation and operation process, and we can help you out. That is what we have today. So thank you very much. And we really appreciate your joining. And Elizabeth, I think I don't know if we have any questions or anything that's come through, but I'll let you take it from here.
That sounds great. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Stefan. With the chat, we ask that you do put the question in the Q&A if you have something you want to ask Tom and Stefan. That would probably be the best way to get your question across. I'm going to hang tight a second. So if you do have a question, it'd probably be best if you can just type that into the chat and we will get to it.
Well, maybe Elizabeth, I'll address some questions that I know that
Sure.
we have had. So these are really common ones. There is some confusion over which parts and pieces I need to order. So as we showed in that previous slide, if you have 500 accounts or less, you need the B6800-SR. And then if you want to have a failover system, you add the B6800-FS. And then any licenses that you want to add in order to grow your system to manage multiple accounts. But what you don't need to do is double up your licenses for the failover system. Any licenses you buy for the main system are valid within the failover as well.
And I did get a question from the audience. Can the B6800 be installed in VxRail hyper-converged infrastructure?
Yeah, so the answer to that is in this release, no, because it's geared towards Hyper-V only, so it's running in a Windows install. Our next release towards the end of the year, we are looking to make it more agnostic to the hypervisor or whatever virtualization platform that's going to be used, because it's just a way to do it. And we also have to go back and do regulatory for anything like that. So there will be changes coming in the future. Good question, though.
Wonderful, thank you. Tom, Stefan, any last thoughts before I close?
Well, for me, I just want to thank everybody for joining today and for your interest in the product. This is really exciting for us. It brings us to a new level. As you are probably aware, Bosch introduced IP communication to the alarm industry, and now we have this new virtual receiver that's so virtual it runs in a virtual machine, and we're really bringing it to the next level. And as Stefan points out, we already have planned upgrades for this. So we're not done. And here's the 6800. Hope you like it. It's a great product coming out of the block, but we're going to make additions and changes to it and make it just easier to use and more functional as we go forward here. So we're really excited about that. And I want to thank Stefan for all the work he and the development team did on this product.
Yep, I see another question that came in
Yes,
too.
thank you,
And I
Stefan.
was just going to say too, if people want to stay and ask questions, we will stay. But the ULC, very interesting. They do not have a standard currently for software receivers. I was just in a committee that we went through and redlined everything for the ULC standard, and it's going through a voting process now. So within 60 days, if everything goes well, there will be an update to the Canadian standard, and then we would test against that. So that's on a roadmap for ULC. So it's a good one.
Great.
Looks like there may be another. Nope, he's just said thank you. Very good.
All right. Well, good. Well, that takes us right to our 30 minutes. Thank you again for attending. We will be following up with an email that will have a link to this recording, also some helpful support resources, and that YouTube channel that Tom had mentioned. And of course, contact information as well to a local sales manager or our team if you want to reach out and ask more questions. So thank you again for joining our release party, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.